Some dreams feel distant, like places you'll never reach. But for me, South Korea was never just a dream. It was a promise. A place where stories come alive, where love feels real, and where I felt connected. I didn't just fall in love with the dramas. I fell in love with a world I had never seen but always felt. And now I was finally going there. I came searching for stories. I never imagined I'd become part of one. Now, standing here, I realize this isn't just a journey. It's the beginning of my story. Tenny had always loved South Korea. Even before she set foot there, she felt a connection to the country. She loved everything about it: the food, the music, the culture, and most of all, the K-dramas. K-dramas had been her escape on rainy afternoons. She could spend hours immersed in their heartfelt stories, watching her favorite characters fall in love, face challenges, and discover their true selves. Whether it was the charming leads, emotional storylines, or stunning backdrops, K-dramas transported Tenny to a world where every moment felt magical. Through these dramas, she picked up simple Korean phrases like "Annyeonghaseyo," hello, "Gomawo," thank you, and "Sarangi," I love you. The thrill of understanding these words in context filled her with excitement, and she couldn't wait to hear them spoken in real life. For years, she had imagined herself walking through the busy streets of Seoul, eating tteokbokki from a street vendor, and visiting beautiful places like Namsan Tower and Jeju Island. When she got the chance to study in Seoul for 2 years as part of an exchange program, it felt like her dream was finally coming true. Tenny's friends and family in Nigeria were both excited and nervous for her. They all gave her advice, but her mom's words stood out. As she hugged Tenny tightly at the airport, she said, "Stay true to yourself, my dear, but don't let anyone treat you unfairly." When Tenny arrived in Seoul, her host family welcomed her warmly. Mr. and Mrs. Kim were kind and always smiling, but their son Miho was different. He barely looked at her when they introduced her and spent most of his time in his room. Miho was tall, with dark hair that fell perfectly into place and deep, piercing eyes. He had the kind of presence that made everyone notice him without him even trying. But his cold attitude made it clear he didn't want to be friends. Tenny didn't let this bother her. She was determined to make the most of her time in South Korea. On her first day of school, she walked confidently into the classroom, her curly hair bouncing with every step. But soon, she realized things weren't going to be easy. The other students whispered about her, stealing curious glances but keeping their distance. She could tell they weren't used to seeing someone like her. Miho, on the other hand, was the center of attention. Everywhere he went, the girls followed him with their eyes, giggling and whispering. The boys either envied him or tried to be like him. Tenny felt like a shadow in comparison. Still, she refused to let it get to her. After school, she explored the city, taking in the sights, sounds, and smells of Seoul. The bright signs, bustling streets, and the smell of freshly cooked Korean barbecue made her heart race with excitement. Even though school was tough, the city gave her hope. But everything changed one evening. After dinner, Tenny decided to take a walk by the Han River. The water sparkled under the city lights, and the cool breeze felt refreshing. Lost in thought, she didn't notice someone following her until she heard a voice behind her. "You shouldn't be out here alone." Startled, Tenny turned around and saw Miho standing there. His hands were in his pockets, and his expression was serious, but there was a softness in his eyes she hadn't seen before. "I didn't think you cared," she said cautiously. "I don't," he replied with a shrug. "But you're staying in my house, so I guess I have to." For a moment, they stood in silence. It wasn't awkward, though. It felt peaceful. Slowly, Miho started to open up. He told her about his love for motorbikes, his struggles with school, and how everyone expected him to be perfect. Tenny listened carefully, surprised by how different he sounded from the boy who ignored her at school. Over the next few weeks, things began to change. At home, Miho started talking to her more. He even walked with her to school sometimes, though he never explained why. At school, he still acted distant, but there were small moments, like when their eyes met in the hallway or when he passed her a note during class, that made her heart skip a beat. But their growing closeness didn't go unnoticed. Miho's ex-girlfriend, Soo-jin, the most popular girl in school, was used to getting what she wanted. She wasn't happy about Tenny being around Miho. One afternoon, Sujin cornered Tenny in the hallway. "You think you can just take him from me?" Sujin said sharply. "Just because you're different doesn't mean he'll choose you." Tenny's hands shook, but she stood her ground. "Maybe it's not about choosing. Maybe he's not yours to own." Sujin's glare was icy, and from that day forward, she and her friends made it their mission to make Tenny's life miserable. They whispered behind her back, bumped into her in the hallway, and laughed loudly whenever she walked by. What hurt the most, though, was Miho's silence. He never stepped in or defended her. At home, he was kind and even sweet sometimes, but at school, he acted like she didn't exist. One day, their teacher announced a field trip to the beach. While the other students were excited, Tenny felt nervous. The idea of spending an entire day surrounded by people who didn't like her was exhausting. On the day of the trip, she found an empty seat at the back of the bus, hoping to stay out of sight. "Can I sit with you?" a voice asked. Tenny looked up and saw a girl with short, colorful hair smiling at her. "Sure," she said, grateful for the company. "I'm Hannah," the girl said as she sat down. "I've never met anyone from Nigeria before. Your hair is so beautiful." Tenny smiled. "Thank you. I'm Tenny." For the first time in weeks, Tenny felt at ease. Hannah was funny and full of questions about Nigeria. They talked about food, music, and movies. Tenny told her about jollof rice and how she missed eating puff puff. Hannah shared her favorite K-pop bands and her dream of visiting Africa someday. As the afternoon went on, Tenny tried to focus on enjoying the beach with Hannah. They took selfies, dipped their feet in the cool water, and shared stories about their homes, laughing together. But no matter how hard she tried to immerse herself in the moment, her eyes kept drifting toward Miho. He was laughing with Sujin and her friends, completely at ease. Hannah noticed her quietness and nudged her. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Tenny said, forcing a smile. But the truth was she wasn't fine. She didn't understand Miho. One moment, he was kind and caring. The next, he was cold and distant. It was exhausting, and Tenny didn't know how much more she could take. As the sun set, the students began packing up to leave. Tenny was relieved the day was almost over. She took her seat on the bus next to Hannah, ready for the long ride home. But just as the bus was about to leave, Miho walked down the aisle. "Hannah, switch seats with me," he said. Hannah looked surprised but didn't argue. She grabbed her things and moved to another seat. Tenny's heart raced as Miho sat down next to her. For a while, neither of them said anything. The tension between them was thick, and Tenny could feel Sujin's glare from the front of the bus. "Why did you sit here?" Tenny finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Miho smirked. "Why not?" Tenny frowned. "You've been ignoring me all day." "I've been busy," he said. With Sujin, she blurted out before she could stop herself. Miho's smirk faded, and he leaned in closer. "Are you jealous?" Tenny's face grew hot. She didn't know what to say. Before she could respond, Miho leaned back, put on his headphones, and closed his eyes, leaving her with more questions than answers. The bus ride back to the city felt like the longest ride of Tenny's life. Miho sat quietly beside her, headphones on and eyes closed, but she could tell he wasn't asleep. She glanced at him from time to time, her mind racing with everything that had happened. Why did he choose to sit with her? Was he just messing with her, or did it mean something? She couldn't stop overthinking. When they got back to the school, Tenny quickly gathered her things and walked off the bus without waiting for anyone. She could feel Sujin's eyes on her and didn't want to give her any more reasons to talk about her. When Tenny got home, she headed straight to her room, trying to avoid Miho after everything that had happened on the bus. The tension from earlier still weighed heavily on her. She needed space to process everything, especially the unspoken moments between them. But as luck would have it, Miho was already waiting for her in the living room. He leaned casually against the arm of the sofa, his expression unreadable. The stillness of the room amplified the unease she felt. "You ran off in a hurry," he said, his tone neutral. Tenny didn't stop walking. "I was tired," she replied shortly. "From what?" "Sitting," he teased, though there was a hint of something else in his voice, almost as if he wanted her to stay and talk. She ignored him and went to her room, closing the door firmly behind her. Later that night, Tenny couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned, thinking about everything. Sujin's angry glares, Hannah's kind words, and Miho's confusing behavior. She didn't understand him at all. One moment, he acted like he cared. The next, he treated her like she didn't exist. It was driving her crazy. She decided to distract herself by studying, but when she opened her bag, she noticed one of her notebooks was missing. The last time she remembered having it was on the bus. Or in Miho's seat. Tenny sighed and got out of bed. Maybe he had picked it up. She tiptoed down the hallway toward Miho's room, hoping he was asleep. She knocked softly but got no response. Taking a deep breath, she slowly pushed the door open. "Miho," she whispered, peeking inside. The room was dimly lit by a small desk lamp. He was lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling, deep in thought. Without turning his head, he spoke. "Looking for this?" He held up her notebook, waving it slightly. Tenny froze. "You knew I left it?" He finally looked at her, a small smirk on his face. "You're not very good at hiding your thoughts. I knew you'd come back for it." She stepped into the room, her heart racing. "Can I have it back?" "Come and get it," he said, holding the notebook just out of her reach. Tenny narrowed her eyes. "Miho, I'm not playing games." "Neither am I," he replied, sitting up and handing her the notebook. But as she reached for it, his hand brushed against hers, and for a moment, everything froze. The air between them felt heavy, as though something unspoken hung in the balance. They looked at each other, neither saying a word. Finally, Tenny broke the silence. "Why do you do this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "One minute, you act like you care. The next, you treat me like I'm nothing. What do you want from me?" Miho's smirk faded. His expression softened, and for a second, it seemed like he wanted to say something. But he stopped himself. "Good night, Tenny," he said quietly, lying back down and turning away. Frustrated, Tenny grabbed her notebook and left the room. She didn't know what to make of him anymore. She wanted to hate him for the way he made her feel, but every time she tried, she remembered those small moments when he let his guard down. Those moments made her heart ache, and she hated herself for it. The next day at school, Sujin was worse than ever. During lunch, she and her friends cornered Tenny in the hallway. "You must really think you're something special," Sujin said, crossing her arms. Her voice was sharp, and her group of friends stood behind her, smirking. "Miho only talks to you because he feels sorry for you. You're nothing to him." Tenny clenched her fists, holding back her anger. "If I'm nothing, why are you so worried about me?" she shot back, her voice steady. Sujin's eyes narrowed as she stepped closer. "Watch yourself, Tenny. You don't belong here." The girls laughed as they walked away, leaving Tenny standing there, her heart pounding with frustration. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She wouldn't give Sujin the satisfaction. Out of the corner of her eye, Tenny noticed Miho standing nearby. He had seen everything but didn't say a word. He just stood there, his face unreadable. Her chest tightened as their eyes met for a brief moment before he turned and walked away. Tenny's hands trembled. Why didn't he defend her? He had seen how Sujin's words cut like a knife. Was he afraid of Sujin? Or did he just not care? That night, Tenny sat on her bed, staring out the window at the Seoul skyline, replaying the day's events in her mind. She couldn't stop asking herself the same question. Why does Miho always make me feel so small and so important at the same time? Her anger simmered as she paced her room. Before she could stop herself, she stormed down the hallway and shoved Miho's door open. He was sitting at his desk, headphones on, scrolling through his phone. He looked up, startled. "Tenny? What are you?" "Why didn't you say anything?" she interrupted, her voice shaking. Miho frowned, pulling off his headphones. "What are you talking about?" "At school today," she said louder, her hands clenched. "You saw how Sujin treated me. And you just stood there. Why didn't you do anything?" Miho leaned back in his chair, his face calm. "It wasn't my fight," he said simply. Tenny's mouth fell open. "Not your fight," she repeated, her voice rising. "You know how hard it's been for me here. How could you just let them treat me like I'm nothing?" Miho looked away, his jaw tightening. "I didn't ask you to get involved with me," he said quietly. "You're making this bigger than it is." Tenny's voice trembled. "You act like you care when it's convenient, But when I really need you, you're nowhere to be found. Why should I keep believing you? Miho stood, towering over her. You don't understand, Tenny, he said, his voice low. Sujin isn't just some girl. She can ruin people. It's not as simple as you think. Tenny shook her head. So you'd rather stay quiet than take a risk? I thought you were different, Miho. But I guess I was wrong. She turned and walked out, slamming the door. Back in her room, she let the tears fall. The weight of Sujin's bullying and Miho's silence felt unbearable. Later, there was a soft knock at Tenny's door. She opened it to find Miho standing there, his face serious. If Sujin or her friends bother you again, he said quietly, tell me. Tenny looked at him, surprised. Why now? Miho sighed. Because I should have done something today. I won't let it happen again. With that, he walked away, leaving Tenny standing there, her heart heavy but slightly lighter. Later that evening, Tenny lay in bed, Miho's words from earlier echoing in her head. Let me know if they ever tease you again. Could he really mean it? Would he finally stand up for her? The thought left her feeling hopeful for the first time in weeks. The next morning, during PE, Tenny sat on the bleachers with Hannah, watching the basketball game. Her eyes kept drifting to Miho, who played with effortless skill, his every move commanding attention. Hannah smirked and nudged her. You're staring, she teased. Tenny flushed. I'm just watching the game. Sure you are, Hannah replied knowingly. You've been watching him the whole time. Before Tenny could respond, Sujin, across the court, caught her staring at Miho. With a glare, she grabbed a basketball and hurled it straight at Tenny without warning. Tenny froze, but before it could hit her, Miho appeared out of nowhere, catching it inches from her face. You okay? He asked, his voice calm but firm. Tenny nodded, her heart pounding. Miho turned to Sujin, his eyes cold. Stop picking on her. You're embarrassing yourself. The court fell silent as Sujin flushed with anger and stormed off. Miho glanced back at Tenny, his voice softer now. Let me know if she bothers you again, he said before jogging back to the game. Tenny's heart raced. He had stood up for her. When school ended, Miho turned to Tenny. Let's head home, he said, his tone unusually soft. As they walked, Tenny stole glances at him, trying to read his expression. His face was calm but gave nothing away. She couldn't help but think about how kind Miho had been earlier. When they got home, Mr. and Mrs. Kim greeted them warmly, their faces glowing with excitement. Mr. Kim had received a promotion at work, and the family decided to celebrate with a special dinner. We're so proud of your father, Mrs. Kim said brightly as they all sat down to eat. The table was covered with delicious dishes, grilled meats, steamed rice, colorful side dishes, and a comforting soup. The atmosphere was lively, filled with laughter and cheerful conversation. For a moment, Tenny felt like she was part of a family again. Even Miho seemed more relaxed, joking with his parents and occasionally glancing at her. The earlier tension between them seemed to fade. Make sure you eat a lot tonight, Tenny, Mrs. Kim said with a wink. We're celebrating. Tenny smiled, feeling truly at ease for the first time in days. Later that evening, Tenny was FaceTiming her mom back in Nigeria. Make sure you're focusing on school, her mom said gently, her voice warm and familiar. Yes, Mom, I am, Tenny assured her before hearing a soft knock at her door. She ended the call and opened the door to find Miho standing there. Come with me, he said simply. Where? Tenny asked, surprised. Just trust me, he replied, a small smile on his face. Reluctantly, she followed him. They boarded a bus together, the ride filled with quietness. Tenny's mind raced with questions, but she stayed silent, watching Miho's calm expression. When they arrived, her eyes widened in disbelief. They were at the New Jeans concert. How did you? She stammered, completely stunned. Miho smirked, his eyes twinkling with amusement. I got us tickets. I figured you'd want to go. Tenny's heart swelled with excitement as they entered the venue. The vibrant lights and the sound of cheering fans made all her earlier frustrations disappear. She had the time of her life, singing along to her favorite songs. The night became even more unforgettable when Miho surprised her with backstage passes. Meeting the band members left her grinning from ear to ear. After the concert, Tenny and Miho sat by the window in a small convenience store, enjoying late-night ramen. The city lights sparkled outside as Tenny slurped her noodles, feeling warmth spread through her. She glanced at Miho, and for the first time in days, the tension between them faded. It felt peaceful, just the two of them sharing this quiet moment. "Thanks for tonight," she said softly. "I didn't expect you to do something like this." Miho shrugged, a small smile on his lips. It wasn't a big deal. As they left the store and started walking home, something magical happened. Snowflakes began to fall from the sky. Tenny gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. "Is this snow?" she asked, her voice filled with excitement. She held out her hands, watching the flakes land and melt on her palms. Miho smiled, watching her reaction. "It's the first snow of the year," he said. "It's special." Tenny's face lit up with joy. "There's no snow in Nigeria," she said, spinning around to catch the flakes on her face. "This is amazing." She bent down, scooped some snow into her hands, and threw it at Miho. He dodged it, laughing, before scooping up his own snow to throw back at her. Soon, they were running through the street, having a playful snowball fight. Their laughter echoed through the quiet night as snow flew in every direction. Tenny's cheeks turned rosy, and her curls were dusted with tiny flakes. For the first time in a long while, she felt completely carefree. At one point, Tenny slipped on the icy pavement. Miho moved quickly, catching her before she could fall. His arms steadied her, and they stood there for a moment, both out of breath. Her hands rested lightly on his chest. "Careful," he said softly, his voice full of concern. Tenny looked up at him, their faces inches apart. Her heart raced, not because of the fall, but because of the way he was looking at her, like she was the only person that mattered. "Thanks," she whispered, stepping back quickly, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. Miho smirked, brushing snow off his jacket. "Let's get you home before you freeze." They continued walking, the snow falling gently around them like a curtain. Tenny couldn't stop smiling. The night had been perfect, and she knew it was one she would remember forever. The next day at school, a buzz of excitement filled the air as the prom announcement spread. Tenny felt both excited and nervous. She couldn't help but wonder, would Miho go to prom? And if he did, would he ask her? Later, as she stood at her locker, she saw Miho walking by. Taking a deep breath, she gathered the courage to speak. "Hey, are you going to prom?" she asked. Miho shrugged. "Not really my thing." Tenny tried to hide her disappointment. "Oh, okay." Miho paused and looked at her. "Do you want to go?" Tenny was surprised. "Yeah, I think it could be fun." Miho smiled slightly. "I'll think about it," he said, walking away, leaving Tenny wondering what he meant. The weekend before prom, Tenny and Hannah decided to make it special by going dress shopping together. As they sifted through racks of elegant gowns, Hannah turned to Tenny with a spark of excitement in her eyes. "Let's meet at my place beforehand," Hannah suggested. "We can get ready together. Hair, makeup, the whole thing." Tenny's face lit up with a warm smile. "That sounds perfect. It'll make the night even more memorable." On prom night, the venue sparkled with lights, creating a magical atmosphere. Tenny stepped into the room, radiant in her shimmering blue gown, her heart racing as she searched the crowd. Her eyes found Miho, looking effortlessly handsome in a sleek black suit. As their gazes locked, he made his way toward her, his expression calm yet intense. The moment felt charged with something unspoken between them. "You look beautiful," he said. "Thanks." "You look great too," Tenny replied, her cheeks warming. "Dance with me?" he asked, extending his hand. Tenny hesitated, but placed her hand in his. As they swayed to the music, it felt like the world around them faded away. But from the corner of her eye, Tenny noticed Sujin watching, her expression smug. Later, the principal announced the prom king and queen, Miho and Sujin. Tenny's heart dropped as she watched Sujin flash a bright smile, while Miho stood beside her. The moment felt surreal to Tenny, her hopes fading as she tried to hold back her disappointment. When the king and queen's dance was announced, Tenny's heart sank. Unable to endure the sight, she turned and rushed outside. Tenny leaned against the wall, trying to catch her breath. Tears pricked her eyes as she replayed the moment. She didn't hear Hannah's footsteps until her friend spoke. Tenny, are you okay? Tenny quickly wiped at her face. I'm fine. Hannah frowned, stepping closer. No, you're not. What happened? Tenny hesitated, then sighed. It's Miho and Sujin. Hannah's eyes softened. Don't let Sujin get to you. She loves showing off, but you shouldn't let her ruin your night. Tenny sniffled. It just hurt, seeing them together. Hannah wrapped an arm around her shoulder. Come on, you're stronger than this. Let's go back inside. We'll dance, have fun, and forget about them. Tenny smiled weakly, her heart feeling a bit lighter. With Hannah's support, she took a deep breath and followed her friend back inside, determined to make the night hers again. Back at the party, Hannah led Tenny straight to the dance floor. Forget Miho and Sujin, Hannah said with a determined smile. Tonight is about having fun. Tenny hesitated but let herself be pulled into the music. As they danced, laughter bubbled up, and for a moment, the weight on her chest lifted. Hannah's energy was contagious, and soon Tenny was smiling, the sparkle returning to her eyes. From across the room, Miho watched her. His expression softened as he saw her laughing with Hannah, but he stayed where he was, torn between approaching her and giving her space. Sujin tried to pull his attention back to their table, but Miho's eyes remained on Tenny. And as the night went on, Tenny did just that, owning the moment and letting herself enjoy every second, proving to herself that she was stronger than she thought. A week later, Ji-woo, one of their classmates, announced a pool party and invited everyone. Hannah made sure Tenny was included. You're coming, right? Hannah asked, her eyes bright with excitement. I'm not sure, Tenny hesitated. She had never been to a pool party before. Tenny, you have to come, Hannah said, practically bouncing with enthusiasm. After all those exams, you deserve to have some fun. Tenny smiled shyly but nodded. All right, I'll go. The party was lively, with laughter and splashing everywhere. Hannah grabbed Tenny's hand near the pool. Let's swim. Tenny shook her head. I don't know how to swim. Hannah smiled. No problem. Just dip your feet in. Nearby, Sujin overheard and smirked. As Hannah turned to get a drink, Sujin saw her chance. She walked past Tenny and shoved her into the pool. Tenny hit the water, panic setting in as she struggled to stay afloat. Gasps filled the air, and just as Tenny felt like she was sinking, Miho dove in without hesitation. He reached her quickly, pulling her to the surface. I've got you, Miho said, his voice calm and steady. He helped her to the edge, where Hannah and others pulled her out. Miho climbed out after her, soaking wet and glaring at Sujin. What is wrong with you? He snapped. Sujin shrugged, pretending it was an accident, but Miho wasn't buying it. Don't ever do that again. Miho, Tenny said softly, her voice weak. It's okay. No, it's not, he replied, his tone gentler now. You could have been hurt. Hannah wrapped a towel around Tenny. Let's get you home, she said. As Miho watched them leave, something shifted in him. For the first time in weeks, he realized just how much he still cared. The pool party stayed in Tenny's mind, especially how Miho saved her. She couldn't forget the way he jumped in without hesitation. But since that night, he hadn't spoken to her, leaving her confused and full of questions. Still, she missed the quiet, fun, and kind moments they had shared. One evening, heavy rain poured as Tenny left the library. Without an umbrella and tired of waiting, she hugged her books and stepped into the downpour. Cold and soaked, she shivered but kept walking, determined to get home before it got too late. Suddenly, she felt someone close behind her. The rain stopped hitting her, and she realized someone was holding an umbrella over her. Tenny, a familiar voice said softly. She turned to see Miho standing there, holding the umbrella above them. His face was calm, but his eyes were warm. You'll get sick walking like this, he said. Why are you here? She asked, surprised. I saw you leaving and thought you might need this, he replied. Let's go home. Tenny hesitated but nodded. They walked in silence at first, the rain pattering around them. His shoulder brushed hers lightly, and she couldn't ignore the comfort of having him near. Miho, she said quietly. Thank you. For the pool party. And now, he glanced at her. You don't have to thank me. I just didn't want to see you hurt. She stopped walking and turned to face him. Then why have you been avoiding me? Miho sighed, looking away. Because it's hard for me. You're kind, strong. You make me want to be better. And I don't know if I can be. Tenny's heart skipped, but she smiled gently. You don't have to be perfect, Miho. Just be honest. He looked at her, his gaze softening. Without a word, he shifted the umbrella closer to cover her and motioned for them to keep walking. 2 years in Seoul had flown by faster than Tenny ever expected. The vibrant city had become her home, and the friendships she had built felt like they had always been a part of her life. But now, as her time in high school was ending, the thought of leaving filled her with dread. One evening, Tenny sat with Hannah at their favorite cafe, stirring her coffee absently. Hannah noticed her friend's distracted look. You've been quiet all day. What's on your mind? Tenny hesitated, then sighed. My parents expect me to come back to Nigeria after graduation, but I don't want to go. I love it here. I want to stay. Hannah's eyes lit up. You're thinking about staying? That's amazing, Tenny. Have you told your parents? Not yet, Tenny admitted. I'm planning to apply to a university here, but I don't know how they'll take it. Hannah reached across the table and grabbed Tenny's hand. I'm proud of you for making this decision. You belong here. And you're not alone. You have me, and... She paused, giving Tenny a knowing look. You have Miho. At the mention of his name, Tenny's cheeks turned pink. Miho hasn't said anything about how he feels, she mumbled. I don't even know if he'll care if I stay. Hannah smirked. Trust me, he cares. That evening, Tenny found Miho sitting in the living room. Sharing the same house made it easier to see him, but her heart still skipped a beat every time. Can we talk? She asked, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. He nodded, stepping aside to let her in. They sat in the small living room, the air between them filled with unspoken words. I've decided to stay in South Korea for university, Tenny said, her heart pounding. I'm not going back to Nigeria. Miho's eyes widened, and for a moment he didn't speak. You're staying? He finally asked, his voice soft. Yes, Tenny said, watching his reaction closely. I feel like this is where I belong. And I didn't want to leave without telling you. Miho looked at her, something unreadable in his expression. Then slowly, a smile spread across his face. I'm glad. I didn't want you to leave either. Tenny blinked, her heart skipping a beat. You didn't. No, Miho said, his voice low. I've been afraid to say anything, but you mean a lot to me, Tenny. I don't know what I'd do if you left. Tenny's breath caught. You mean a lot to me too, she whispered. Miho leaned closer, his hand gently holding hers. Then stay. We'll figure this out together. A warm smile broke across Tenny's face, her heart racing with hope. Okay, she said softly, feeling the weight lift. Tenny's next few weeks were filled with excitement and change. Though her parents were initially hesitant, a heartfelt conversation helped them understand her dreams. They eventually agreed to support her decision to stay and study in South Korea. Their love and approval gave Tenny the courage to embrace this new chapter in her life. Hannah celebrated the news with an over-the-top dinner, complete with karaoke and heartfelt speeches. As the months passed, Tenny settled into her new life as a university student. She juggled classes, part-time work, and her friendships with Miho and Hannah. Miho, true to his word, stayed by her side, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. One evening, as they walked along the Han River, Miho stopped and turned to her. I'm glad you stayed, Tenny. You've changed my life in so many ways. Tenny smiled, her heart full. And you've changed mine. Under the twinkling city lights, they embraced in a quiet moment, their hearts full of gratitude for the journey that had brought them together. Tenny had come to South Korea unsure of what to expect, but she had found more than a home. She had found love, friendship, and a future she was excited to embrace. I never imagined I'd be here, halfway across the world, in a city that once seemed like just a dream. 2 years ago, I was just a girl with a quiet dream hidden deep inside. Now, I'm living in the city I once only dreamed of, building the life I used to whisper to myself at night. But the biggest surprise? Love. I never thought I'd find it here, in a place so unfamiliar, with someone who sees me for more than I am. Someone who sees who I can become. Miho wasn't in my plans. But like a gentle breeze, he came into my life, and I couldn't turn away. His love has pulled me out of doubt and into something I never knew I deserved. In this city of dreams, I'm learning not just to chase them, but to let love bloom in my life in ways I never imagined. Tenny stepped out of the library, the soft hum of university life surrounding her. The cool spring air brushed her skin, and for a moment, everything felt right. Her heart felt a little lighter now. Miho had stayed true to his promise, supporting her decision to stay in South Korea. Her life had changed in ways she never imagined, going from quiet dreams in Nigeria to the exciting reality of university in Seoul. Still, there was something inside her that made her feel uncertain. Tenny had always been a dreamer, but now, with the reality of university life settling in, the pressure to prove herself felt heavy. Even though Miho was by her side and Hannah was always there for her, she couldn't help but feel like there was so much more waiting for her. She wanted to accomplish more, but she often wondered if she was enough. One evening, after a long day of classes, Tenny met up with Hannah at their favorite cafe. It was the same place where they had spent hours dreaming, laughing, and talking about everything that mattered. "You look deep in thought," Hannah said, taking a sip of her drink with a grin. "What's on your mind?" Tenny sighed, staring into her coffee cup. "I don't know, Hannah. I'm happy here, but I feel overwhelmed. It's not like high school anymore. I have so many goals, but sometimes I wonder if I'm good enough to reach them." Hannah smiled confidently. "You are good enough, Tenny. You're here because you earned it. Just take one step at a time, and you'll get there." Tenny smiled back, but there was a doubt in her heart. "I just wish I could believe that the way you do." Hannah leaned back in her chair. "You're doing amazing, Tenny. And you've got Miho by your side, right?" At the mention of Miho's name, Tenny's smile faded a little. She had been thinking a lot about their relationship lately. Was it love? Or just comfort? They shared many quiet, beautiful moments, but was that enough? A week later, Miho asked Hannah for a favor. He needed her to keep Tenny busy while he prepared a surprise picnic to show her how much he cared. "Why is Miho acting so weird today?" Tenny asked as Hannah pulled her into a clothing store. Hannah shrugged, trying to look casual. "Maybe he's just busy with something. Now, come on. Let's find you a nice outfit. You deserve it." That evening, Tenny's phone buzzed with a message from Miho. "Tenny, meet me by the Han River tonight. We're something nice. I have a surprise for you." Tenny's curiosity grew as she made her way to the Han River. When she arrived, she found Miho waiting under a tree. A picnic blanket was spread out with food, candles, and fairy lights twinkling in the branches above. "Miho, what is all this?" Tenny asked, surprised. "It's for you," he said, stepping closer. "You've been working so hard lately, and I wanted to do something special for you." Tenny smiled, touched by his thoughtfulness. "You didn't have to do all this. You're worth it," he said softly. They sat together, enjoying the food and the peaceful evening. As the night went on, Miho reached for her hand. "I've never felt this way about anyone," he said, his voice serious. "You make me want to be better. Not because you expect it, but because I want to be someone worthy of you." Tenny felt her heart race. She hadn't expected such honesty, but it felt right. "Miho." He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his eyes full of meaning. "Tenny, I care about you. A lot." Tenny's heart swelled with emotion, and her eyes filled with tears. Not tears of sadness, but tears of happiness. "I care about you too, Miho. More than I can say." The world seemed to disappear around them as their lips met in a soft, tender kiss. It wasn't just a kiss. It was a promise, one of trust, love, and a future they would build together. In that moment, everything fell into place. Tenny realized that, despite her doubts, she had everything she needed. She had found love in the most unexpected way and in the most unexpected place. And as they pulled away from the kiss, they both knew that this was only the beginning of something beautiful. Tenny and Hannah share a strong, sisterly bond that has been built over years of support and understanding. Hannah, Tenny's best friend, has always been there for her, offering guidance, encouragement, and a listening ear through both the challenging and joyful moments of life. Together, they walk the vibrant streets of Seoul, chatting about their dreams for the future, their hopes, fears, and the little things that bring them joy. such as their shared love for K-dramas. One evening, while they were at their favorite cafe, Tenny couldn't help but sigh contentedly as she sipped her coffee. I can't believe how much things have changed. Sometimes, it feels like I'm living in a K-drama. Hannah grinned. Well, you've got the romance part covered. The only thing missing is a dramatic love confession in the rain. Tenny laughed, shaking her head. If Miho ever does that, I think I'll faint from the shock. Hannah winked. You never know. K-dramas have a way of coming true. One day, while walking through campus, Tenny bumped into a guy who was looking at a flyer for a study group. He was tall, with a warm smile and a slight accent that immediately caught her attention. Sorry, he said, offering a quick apology. I didn't see you there. Tenny smiled back. No problem. You're from Africa? She asked, noticing the accent that sounded familiar. The guy smiled, his eyes lighting up. Yeah, I'm from Ghana. My name's Kwame. Tenny's face brightened. I'm from Nigeria, she said, her voice full of excitement. It's so nice to meet another African here. Kwame laughed, clearly amused by her enthusiasm. It's rare to meet someone from home here. How are you finding Seoul? It's amazing, Tenny said, her smile wide. But I still miss home sometimes. It's nice to meet someone who understands that feeling. They spent the next few hours talking about their shared experiences as Africans in South Korea. The culture shock, the food, the differences in education. Tenny was thrilled to meet someone who understood her background so well. It was a refreshing change, and the conversation flowed easily, like they had known each other for years. Over the next few weeks, Kwame became a regular part of Tenny's university life. He joined her and Hannah for study sessions, and his upbeat energy added a new dynamic to their group. Tenny enjoyed having him around, especially since he had an easygoing nature that contrasted with Miho's more reserved demeanor. One evening, after Miho took Tenny out to dinner to celebrate her success in her recent exams, they strolled through the lively streets of Seoul. The night air was crisp, and the city was buzzing with energy, but Miho seemed unusually secretive. He kept steering her down different paths, as though leading her to some unknown destination. Where are we going, Miho? Tenny asked, her curiosity growing. You'll see, he said with a grin, his eyes glinting mischievously. I thought you might like a little surprise. Her heart fluttered with excitement. Tenny had always loved surprises, but she had no idea what he had in mind. As they walked, she noticed they were heading toward a quieter part of the city, where a crowd had gathered near an outdoor set. She looked around in confusion. Miho stopped and gestured toward the bustling scene. We're here, he said. Tenny's eyes widened as she realized where they were. A K-drama filming location. Her favorite one, to be exact. The scene being filmed was one of the most iconic moments from The Last Moonlight, a show she never missed an episode of. Her heart raced as the realization hit her. She was standing at the exact spot where one of her favorite scenes was brought to life. I can't believe it, Tenny whispered, almost in disbelief. Miho smiled, watching her reaction. He had known how much Tenny adored the show, but he had no idea she'd be this excited. Before Tenny could fully process the moment, Ji-hoon, the actor she had admired for so long, stepped out of the crowd. He walked confidently toward the set, and Tenny couldn't take her eyes off him. She gasped, her face lighting up with joy. Ji-hoon, she exclaimed, her voice full of excitement. She took a few steps toward him, her hands slightly trembling. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's really you. I watch your show all the time. I've wanted to meet you for so long. Ji-hoon's smile grew wider as he saw the genuine excitement on her face. It's great to meet a fan, he said warmly. I'm glad you like the show. Tenny's heart raced as she almost couldn't believe she was standing there, in front of Ji-hoon, one of her favorite actors. Without thinking, she blurted out, Can we take a picture together? Please. Ji-hoon chuckled softly, clearly amused by her enthusiasm. Of course, he said, stepping closer as they posed for a photo. Tenny could hardly believe how surreal the moment was. It was as though she had stepped into one of her K-drama fantasies. When the photo was taken, she thanked him profusely, her voice filled with joy. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Thank you so much. As they left the filming site later that evening, Miho wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. He could see how happy she was, and that made him smile. "I'm glad you had fun," he said softly. Tenny looked up at him, her heart full of gratitude. "Thank you, mijo. This is a night I'll never forget. You really know how to make a girl feel special." Mijo's smile grew as he kissed her forehead gently. "You deserve all the happiness in the world, Tenny." And as the cool night air embraced them, Tenny couldn't help but feel like the luckiest person in the world. In one evening, she had experienced a dream come true, surrounded by love, laughter, and an adventure she never could have imagined. This is where my story continues, a journey of dreams, love, and friendship, where the path is rarely straight or simple. I came to Seoul chasing a dream that felt impossible at times, a dream I wasn't sure I was ready for. I thought I could do it all, balance work, love, and friendships. But life had other plans. Now, as everything around me changes, I'm left with one question. Can I hold on to the people I love and the dreams I cherish without losing myself? This is a story of resilience, sacrifice, and the courage to keep moving forward, one step at a time. A few weeks later, Tenny received an amazing opportunity, an internship with one of the best fashion companies in Seoul. It was her dream come true, a chance to work with talented designers and learn from the best. She was excited, but soon realized it wasn't going to be easy. The work was fast-paced and demanding, with long hours and high expectations that left her feeling overwhelmed. Mijo and Hannah were always there for her. Mijo encouraged her, reminding her she could achieve anything she set her mind to, while Hannah's positive energy helped her stay motivated. Their support meant everything to her, but Tenny couldn't stop worrying about how the internship might affect her relationship with Mijo. The late nights and busy schedule were making it harder to spend time together. Would they grow apart, or could their bond survive the distance? When Tenny shared her doubts with Mijo, he listened patiently and smiled. "I'll always be here for you," he said. "You've got this." His words gave her the confidence to move forward. At work, Tenny gave it her all. Her creativity and dedication quickly made her stand out, and her supervisors trusted her with more responsibilities. But as she became more successful, her personal life suffered. She missed spending time with Mijo and Hannah, and the simple moments they used to share now felt out of reach. Even though it was tough, Tenny reminded herself why she started. This was her dream, and she was determined to see it through. She hoped that with time, she'd find a way to balance her work and her relationships, holding on to the belief that the people who truly cared about her would always be by her side. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day at the office, Tenny returned home to find Mijo waiting for her. He was holding a small bouquet of wildflowers, a soft smile on his face, but his eyes showed a hint of concern. "Tenny," he said gently, "I know you've been really busy, but we need to talk." Tenny's shoulders sagged as she dropped her bag onto the couch. She was too tired to hide the exhaustion in her eyes. "I know, Mijo. I'm sorry. I've been so caught up in everything. I'm not handling it well." Mijo sat beside her, taking her hand in his. He looked at her with understanding. "It's okay to work hard, but you can't do everything alone. Tenny, but you've got to take care of yourself too." Tenny felt a lump form in her throat. She wanted to tell him everything, how much she missed him, how torn she felt between chasing her dreams and keeping their relationship strong. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, she simply rested her head on his shoulder, grateful for his quiet presence. "I just don't want to lose you, Mijo," she whispered. Mijo squeezed her hand gently, his voice soft but firm. "You won't lose me, Tenny. I'm here for you, always." In that moment, Tenny realized that the work was important, but the people she loved were just as important. It was a delicate balance, one she would have to figure out, but with Mijo's unwavering support and Hannah's friendship, she knew she wouldn't be alone in facing it. As she closed her eyes, resting against Mijo, she understood that sometimes the most meaningful moments weren't the big gestures, but the quiet ones. The ones that told her, no matter how busy life got, there would always be a place for love and understanding in her life. Tenny had been feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. Between the pressures of her demanding internship and the constant juggling of her studies, she was stretched thin. Mijo could see how much the stress was affecting her, and he knew she needed a break, a chance to breathe, unwind, and rediscover the joy she had once radiated. So he planned a surprise weekend getaway to Jeju Island, hoping it would offer her the escape she so desperately needed. The serene beauty of the island, away from the pressures of her daily life, was exactly what Tenny needed to slow down, recharge, and reconnect with herself, and with Miho. The island was more beautiful than anything Tenny had imagined. From the moment they arrived, the gentle breeze greeted them, carrying the scent of the sea and fresh flowers. The sound of the waves crashing softly against the shore made everything feel calm. Jeju was like a living postcard, picturesque and peaceful. For the next few days, Tenny and Miho immersed themselves in adventure. They hiked up Halasen Mountain, taking in the breathtaking views of the island below. With every step, Tenny felt the weight on her shoulders ease, the fresh air filling her lungs with a sense of freedom she hadn't felt in months. Miho, ever the guide, was there by her side, encouraging her to take in the beauty of each moment. They laughed as they stumbled over rocks and rooted for each other to make it to the top, only to find themselves catching their breath and giggling like children once they reached the summit. After the hike, they stopped by a small seaside village, where they tasted the freshest seafood Tenny had ever had. The grilled mackerel was so flavorful it melted in her mouth, and they spent hours sitting by the ocean, watching the fishermen return with their catch. They even took a boat ride, drifting on the sparkling water, laughing as the wind tousled their hair. One of the highlights of the trip was visiting the Haenyeo women, Jeju's famous freediving fishermen. Tenny was amazed by their strength and grace as they dived deep into the ocean to collect seaweed and shellfish. The women's faces, weathered by years of salt water, radiated a quiet kind of power that Tenny admired. One afternoon, they rode bicycles along the coast, the salty wind in their hair. Tenny couldn't help but smile, the joy of the day lighting up her face. They stopped at a quiet beach where Miho taught her how to skip stones across the water. Her laughter echoed in the air every time a stone skipped, and Miho's eyes sparkled with happiness as he watched her. As the final night in Jeju arrived, Tenny felt a deep sense of peace. The days of exploration, adventure, and laughter had reminded her of the simple joys she had forgotten in the rush of her everyday life. She had been so focused on her goals, on trying to prove herself. "I needed this," she said quietly, her voice filled with emotion. "I've been so wrapped up in the future that I didn't stop to appreciate the present." Miho smiled warmly, pulling her closer. "That's exactly why I wanted to bring you here. To remind you that life isn't just about reaching for the next thing. It's about being present, enjoying what's around you, enjoying what we have right now." They stood there, hand in hand, as the waves crashed against the shore. Tenny closed her eyes, letting the peace of the moment sink in. The ocean, the sky, the stars, it all felt like a dream. Tenny realized in that moment that she had found something more valuable than any goal she could achieve. She had found peace, love, and the reminder that life was about living fully in each moment. Tenny carried the memories of Jeju with her. Memories of laughter, quiet moments, and new realizations. The trip had reminded her of the importance of balance in her life, of taking time for herself, for the people who mattered, and for the simple joys that often went unnoticed. As she prepared for the next steps in her life, she knew that she would keep these moments close to her heart, and that, with Miho by her side, she would always have a reason to stop, breathe, and appreciate the world around her. As they returned to Seoul, Tenny's phone buzzed with a message from Hannah, her loyal and encouraging best friend. The text simply read, "Dinner at my place tonight. I have news." Tenny couldn't help but smile. She quickly typed back, "I'll be there." When she arrived at Hannah's apartment later that evening, the space was alive with the comforting sense of homemade Korean dishes, soft music in the background, and the warmth of good company. Hannah had gone all out as usual, decorating the place, preparing a beautiful spread, and making sure everything was just right. But tonight, something felt different. There was an energy in the air that Tenny couldn't quite place. Hannah, holding a spoon like a microphone, stood up with an excited grin. All right, she said, drawing Tenny's and Miho's attention. "I have something big to share." Tenny looked at Miho, raising an eyebrow. He gave her a playful smirk, as if he already knew what was coming. Hannah beamed. I'm moving to Japan for a year. I got an internship with a major company there. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. Tenny's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't believe it. Hannah, that's incredible. But, Japan? That's so far away. I know, right? Hannah sat down, her face a mix of excitement and nerves. It feels surreal, but I've been thinking about it for a long time. I feel like I need to push myself, to do something that's all about me. Miho nodded, his expression filled with admiration. You've been talking about this for months. You've worked hard for it, and I'm really proud of you, Hannah. Tenny's emotions swirled inside her. She was proud of her friend, truly, but at the same time, she couldn't shake the uneasy feeling growing in her chest. Hannah was taking a huge step forward, and Tenny realized that things were changing too fast. The dinner passed in a blur of laughter and congratulations, but Tenny found herself quieter than usual. Afterward, as she and Miho walked home together under the quiet night sky, a heavy silence hung between them. Finally, Tenny spoke, her voice soft and a little uncertain. I'm happy for her. Really, I am. But I can't help feeling like everything's changing too quickly. Hannah's moving on with her life, and I don't know. It just feels different now. Miho stopped walking and turned to face her, his expression gentle. It's okay to feel that way, he said softly. Change is hard, even when it's a good thing. But Hannah's growing, just like you are. It's not a goodbye, it's just a new chapter. You're both moving forward in your own ways. Tenny looked up at him, her heart still heavy but comforted by his words. I know. I just wasn't ready for this. For everything to feel so different. Miho smiled and gently took her hand. You don't have to be ready. Life will always change, but as long as you keep moving with it, you'll be okay. Tenny took a deep breath, feeling a little lighter. She was happy for Hannah, even if it meant things were shifting. And in that moment, she realized that it wasn't just about the changes happening around her. It was about how she chose to face them. And with Miho by her side, she knew she would find her way, just as Hannah was finding hers. The day Hannah was leaving for Japan arrived all too quickly. Tenny stood in front of her mirror, trying to calm the storm of emotions inside her. She knew this was the right step for Hannah, an opportunity she had worked so hard for. But the thought of her best friend leaving for an entire year made her heart ache. At the airport, Miho was already waiting by Tenny's side, his presence a steady comfort. They stood near the departure gate, watching as people bustled around them. Tenny's eyes kept darting to the clock, knowing time was slipping away and soon, Hannah would be on her way. Then she saw her. Hannah, with her signature smile, her bright eyes full of excitement and a little bit of nervousness. She was carrying a single suitcase, and the look on her face showed how ready she was to take on the world. But as soon as she spotted Tenny and Miho, her smile faltered, and she walked toward them, pulling Tenny into a tight hug. I'm going to miss you so much, Tenny whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I can't believe you're actually leaving. Hannah pulled back slightly, brushing a tear from Tenny's cheek. I'm going to miss you too. But it's just a year, Tenny. Just 1 year. I'll be back and we'll catch up, just like always. I know, but it feels so final, Tenny admitted. She felt like she was losing a piece of her heart. Miho stepped forward, giving both of them a reassuring smile. It's not final, Tenny. It's just a new adventure. Hannah's taking this big step for herself, and she's going to come back even stronger. And while she's away, I'll be here for you. We're a team, remember? Tenny glanced at him, her heart warming at his words. You really will? Of course, Miho said, his eyes steady. I'm not going anywhere. And you're not alone. Hannah looked at them both, a smile tugging at her lips. You two are something else, you know that? I'm lucky to have both of you. Promise me you'll take care of each other while I'm gone. We promise, Tenny said, her voice more certain now. The announcement came over the intercom, calling for Hannah's flight to board. Hannah gave them one last, long hug, her arms tight around Tenny, as though she didn't want to let go. I'll be back before you know it, Hannah whispered. And we'll share stories and make new memories. I'm just a plane ride away. Tenny nodded, though her heart still felt heavy. She watched as Hannah walked toward the gate, her back straight, ready for the next chapter of her life. As soon as Hannah disappeared behind the security checkpoint, Tenny let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Miho stood beside her, his arm gently around her shoulders. "You're okay," he said softly. Tenny nodded, blinking away the tears that threatened to spill. "I will be. I didn't expect it to be this hard. I feel like things are changing, and I'm not ready for it." Miho squeezed her hand, leading her away from the gate. "Change is always hard. But remember, you have me. And Hannah will always be just a call away. You're not losing her. You're just taking different paths for a while." "I know," Tenny said, looking up at him with a small smile. "Thank you, Miho. I'm really lucky to have you." He smiled back, pulling her a little closer. "We're in this together, Tenny. Always." As they stepped out of the airport into the cool evening air, Tenny felt a calmness she hadn't expected. She looked up at the sky, where a few stars were starting to shine, and took a deep breath. She would miss Hannah, but she wasn't alone. Miho's hand in hers was steady and warm, reminding her that she didn't have to face the future on her own. Miho glanced at her and smiled. "You ready for what's next?" he asked gently. Tenny smiled back. "Not yet," she said, "but I think I'll be okay. One step at a time." They walked toward the city lights in the distance, hand in hand. Change was still scary, but now it felt full of new possibilities. And with Miho by her side, Tenny felt ready to face whatever came next. A few months later, Tenny stood in the middle of a bright fashion studio in Seoul. Mannequins wearing her designs lined the room, while photographers and journalists moved around her. It was her first showcase, the moment she had worked so hard for. The dream of becoming a designer was now a reality. As she looked at her creations, pride and gratitude filled her heart. Across the room, Tenny saw Miho standing tall, his eyes full of admiration. He gave her a small thumbs up, making her heart swell with pride. Beside him was Hannah, who had flown all the way from Japan just to surprise her. Tenny's heart skipped a beat. Hannah's bright smile and energetic wave made Tenny laugh, despite the butterflies in her stomach. It had been months since they had seen each other, and seeing her best friend again felt like home. After the showcase, they walked together through the cool night air, heading to a nearby park. The soft glow of the streetlights illuminated their path, and Tenny felt surrounded by the love and support that had carried her this far. "I can't believe you came all the way from Japan just for me," Tenny said, her voice full of emotion. "You didn't have to, but I'm so happy you're here." Hannah smiled, her eyes sparkling. "Of course I did. You're my best friend, Tenny. I wouldn't miss this for the world." She hugged Tenny tightly. "I wanted to see you shine." Miho smiled too and took Tenny's hand. "You did this, Tenny. Your talent and hard work made it happen. But we'll always be here cheering you on." Tenny looked up at the stars, a peaceful feeling filling her. "I've learned something important," she said quietly. "Dreams are worth chasing, but they mean so much more when you have people who believe in you." As they sat on a park bench, Hannah pulled out her phone and started recording. "All right, Tenny," she said playfully. "When you're feeling doubtful, remember this moment. Remember how far you've come." Tenny laughed. "You're silly, Hannah." Hannah grinned. "And you love it." Miho wrapped his arm around Tenny's shoulder. "So, what's next, future star?" Tenny thought for a moment, a smile crossing her face. "I don't know yet. But whatever it is, I'm ready. One step at a time." Under the starlit sky, Tenny realized that it wasn't just about the dreams she was chasing. It was about the journey and the people who were with her along the way. With Miho and Hannah by her side, she felt ready for whatever the future held. And as they shared laughter and stories, Tenny knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The days after the showcase passed in a golden blur of congratulations, interviews, and new opportunities. Tenny had barely caught her breath when she received an offer from a well-known fashion house for a part-time design assistant role, one that could easily turn into something full-time after graduation. It was everything she had worked for, yet she couldn't shake a strange sense of stillness inside. One evening, she sat alone on the rooftop of her apartment, a cup of barley tea warming her hands as the city buzzed beneath her. Miho had been busy too, working hard toward his own goals, though he rarely talked about them. And Hannah had flown back to Japan, their reunion far too short. The wind was getting cooler now. Autumn had arrived, turning the trees of Seoul into a riot of burnt orange and gold. And with the new season came change again. Just then, her phone buzzed. "Miho, meet me downstairs. Dress warm." Tenny raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a smile. She threw on her jacket and scarf and hurried down. Miho stood waiting beside his motorbike, 2 helmets in hand. "Where are we going?" she asked. Miho simply handed her a helmet. "You'll see." They rode out of the city, past the glowing streetlights and into the quiet countryside. The ride was long, peaceful. Tenny's arms wrapped around Miho, the night air sharp with the scent of pine and smoke. Eventually, they arrived at a hilltop overlooking a small lake surrounded by lantern-lit trees. A cozy fire pit had been set up nearby, and a thermos of hot chocolate sat beside a blanket. Tenny gasped. "You did all this?" Miho nodded. "You've been giving your all lately. I thought you needed a moment just for you." They sat together, legs stretched toward the fire. Tenny leaned into him, her voice unsteady. "It feels like everything around me is shifting. I'm finally where I hoped I'd be. But I'm scared too. What if I can't keep up with it all?" Miho turned to face her. "Tenny, you don't have to keep up with the world. Let it keep up with you. You're allowed to slow down, to figure things out." His words hit home in a way she didn't expect. Tenny reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining. "Promise me, if I ever get lost in it all, you'll remind me who I am?" Miho smiled softly. "Always." Back in Seoul, the following weeks carried a quiet shift. Tenny juggled her new role at the fashion house with university, her schedule full from sunrise to sunset. But something inside her had changed. She wasn't chasing anymore, she was living. Her designs were bolder, her ideas more daring. She had found her rhythm. One day after class, Tenny's professor approached her with a letter in hand, a proud smile on her face. "Tenny, congratulations, you've been selected," she said. "You're one of the 3 students chosen for the international exchange program in Milan." Tenny froze, the words barely sinking in. Milan, the heart of high fashion. A 3-month mentorship with a European designer. "It's a big step," her professor added gently. "But I believe you're ready." Later that night, Tenny sat with Miho beneath the neon lights of their favorite Pojangmika tent. The city buzzed around them, but her thoughts were miles away. She twisted the chopsticks nervously in her hands. "It's just 3 months," she said. "But still, it's Milan." Miho was quiet for a moment, then looked at her with steady eyes. "You have to go. But what about us?" "You're not choosing Milan over me," he said. "You're choosing your dream. And I'd never ask you not to." Tenny felt her eyes sting. "Are you sure?" Miho reached across the table and gently brushed her hand. "I'd wait for you a lot longer than 3 months." The day Tenny left for Milan, Hannah surprised her with a video compilation filled with messages from friends, professors, and even a short clip from Kwame, who had returned to Ghana and started a creative collective of his own. Seeing their faces, hearing their encouragement, it filled her with a bittersweet warmth. In Milan, everything moved at double speed. The city was dazzling, sharp-edged, and full of brilliance. Tenny quickly learned that talent wasn't enough. You had to fight to be seen. Her mentor, Alessandra Fiore, was a legend and not known for kindness. "You have good instincts," she told Tenny bluntly one day. "But instincts are only the beginning. Show me something that scares you, and maybe you'll start becoming great." Tenny worked harder than ever, often crashing into bed past midnight, sometimes too tired to call Miho. Their texts grew shorter. Sometimes they'd go days without speaking. And though the love was still there, the distance echoed louder with time. One rainy night, Miho finally called. Tenny was alone in the studio, a half-finished design sprawled across her work table. "I miss you," he said softly. "I miss you too," she whispered. They were quiet for a long time. Then Miho asked, "When you come back, what do you want for us?" Tenny's throat tightened. "I don't know. Everything's changing. I'm changing. But I know this, I still want you in my life." "That's enough for me," he said. For now, after her 3-month internship ended, Tenny had to return to Seoul. When the plane landed, she looked out the window for a long time. The city skyline was the same, but she wasn't. Milan had changed her. She was more focused now. She had grown, not just as a designer, but as a woman. She was stronger, more sure of herself. But also a little lonelier. The airport was crowded, voices and footsteps bouncing off the walls. As she stepped through arrivals, she didn't expect to see anyone waiting. But there he was. Miho, leaning against a pillar, hands in his coat pockets, eyes scanning the crowd. When their eyes met, time paused. He smiled, small, familiar, and warm. Tenny walked toward him slowly, unsure of what to say. You didn't reply to my last message, she said softly. Miho nodded. I didn't know what to say. There was a beat of silence. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. I wrote it instead. She opened it carefully. It wasn't long, just a few lines in his uneven handwriting. You went after something that mattered to you. And that's the girl I fell in love with. If there's still a place for me in your life, I want to be there. But if not, just know I'm proud of you. Tenny felt her eyes sting. There's always been a place, she whispered. Even when I didn't know where I was headed, it was always you. He stepped forward slowly, unsure, until she reached for him first. Back in her small apartment, the rhythm of soul returned. The buzz of traffic, the smell of street food, the quiet hum of a heater kicking on at night. Tenny slipped back into it, but this time things were different. She was different. She worked part-time with the Milan design house remotely, while also helping a local brand rebrand their look. At night, she sketched her own line, something fresh, something bold. Her voice. Miho had started a small custom bike shop with a few university friends. His days were long and greasy, but he was smiling more. He didn't try to define their relationship too tightly. They had both learned that love wasn't about holding on too hard. It was about growing and choosing each other again, even when it got hard. Sometimes they fought. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes he got quiet and wouldn't explain why. But they always came back. Winter in Seoul arrived gently, like a quiet breath. Snowflakes dusted the rooftops and street corners, and the city sparkled with warm lights and holiday music. Tenny's life had settled into something real. No longer a whirlwind, but a steady rhythm of love, creativity, and quiet joy. One chilly evening, Tenny was helping decorate Miho's bike shop for its one-year anniversary. As she hung up string lights along the window, Miho came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. You know, he murmured, this place wouldn't exist without you. She smiled. All I did was help paint the walls. No, he said, resting his chin on her shoulder. You made me believe I could build something. She turned in his arms, brushing snowflakes from his hair. We built each other. A week later, Tenny's phone lit up with a call, and a familiar voice came through, full of excitement. Hannah, guess who just landed in Seoul? Tenny nearly dropped her coffee mug. What? Are you serious? Hannah, surprise. I'm coming over. Don't clean. I want to see the mess and the chaos. Tenny burst into laughter, already tidying the pillows on her couch. Hannah arrived with stories from Japan, a suitcase full of snacks and beauty products, and the same whirlwind energy that had always filled every room she entered. They stayed up late into the night, catching up over hotteok and tea. You seem grown, Hannah said, studying her friend. Like a woman who knows what she wants. Tenny smiled shyly. Maybe I'm finally becoming her. A few nights later, Miho invited Tenny, Hannah, his parents, and a handful of close friends to a quiet dinner at a small garden restaurant nestled in the hills. Fresh snow had fallen earlier, and the garden lights shimmered softly against the white-covered paths and trees, creating a peaceful, magical atmosphere. Tenny didn't think much of it. Miho's family loved quiet gatherings. But as dessert was served, the music shifted, and Miho stood up, his hands slightly trembling. I've never been good at big speeches, he began, looking right at Tenny. But you've been part of my life in ways I still don't have the words for. You've seen me at my worst, my quietest, my most uncertain, and you stayed. You believed in me before I believed in myself. Tenny's heart raced as Miho stepped closer, then dropped to one knee, pulling out a small velvet box. I don't want a future that doesn't have you in it. Tenny, will you marry me? Her hands flew to her mouth, tears brimming. She didn't need to think. Yes. Yes, Miho, of course. The garden burst into applause. Miho's mother wiped her eyes. His father gave him a proud nod. Hannah hooped so loudly she startled a waiter. Later that night, after everyone had left and the snow had hushed the city, Tenny sat alone in her apartment, the room glowing softly with warm light. She looked down at the ring on her finger, simple, elegant, and full of meaning. Her hands trembled slightly as she picked up her phone and dialed a familiar number. The call connected, and after a few rings, her mother's warm voice came through. Tenny, is everything all right? Tenny let out a shaky breath, a smile tugging at her lips. Mum, I wanted to tell you something myself before you heard it from anyone else. What is it, my dear? I'm engaged. Miho proposed tonight. There was a pause on the other end, followed by a surprised gasp. Engaged? Ah, Tenny, her mother exclaimed, a mix of shock and joy in her voice. You're serious? Tenny laughed, her eyes misting. Yes, Mum. I said yes. Do you love him? Truly. I do. With everything in me. Her mother was quiet for a moment, then said softly, full of warmth, "Then that's what matters. We're proud of you, my daughter. When are you bringing him home to meet us properly?" Tenny smiled through her tears, her heart full. "Soon. I want him to see where I come from, to see where my story began." Later that night, Tenny and Miho sat on the rooftop, fingers laced together, a small fire crackling beside them. Hannah had gone home to rest, but not before insisting she was going to be the glamorous, chaotic maid of honor. "Can you believe it?" Tenny whispered, looking at the skyline. "No," Miho said, "but I'm glad it's real." They didn't talk about the future in detail that night. No plans, no dates, no lists. Just a feeling, a quiet promise, that whatever came next, they would face it together. Because this wasn't just a love story anymore. It was a life story, and it had only just begun. Months later, the spring sun glowed gently over the garden courtyard, painting everything in gold. Cherry blossoms drifted through the air like blessings, soft and slow. The venue, a blend of Korean and Nigerian elements, reflected the couple perfectly. Two hearts, two cultures, one story. Tenny stood in front of the mirror, her dress a graceful fusion of elegance and heritage. A flowing white gown with subtle Ankara patterns woven into the train, her natural curls adorned with delicate gold pins. Hannah adjusted the final pin and grinned at her through the reflection. "You're glowing," she said, voice a little shaky. "I told you you'd get your K-drama ending." Tenny laughed softly. "It's not an ending, just a new beginning." Hannah wiped her eyes dramatically. "Ugh, you're going to make me cry before the ceremony." Meanwhile, in another room, Miho adjusted the collar of his traditional Korean hanbok, embroidered with patterns symbolizing harmony and commitment. His father clapped a hand on his shoulder. "You chose well. Not just a good woman, someone who makes you better." Miho smiled, steady and sure. She changed everything. As the music began to play, guests took their seats. Family and friends from Seoul, Ghana, Nigeria, and beyond. The walkway was lined with cherry blossoms and soft white cloth. Tenny stepped forward, her heart pounding but full. When she reached the front, she saw him, Miho, standing beneath a delicate arch of flowers and woven fabrics, his eyes fixed on her with the same quiet awe he'd always held. Their vows were simple, honest, full of all the things that couldn't be wrapped into neat words. Distance, closeness, forgiveness, laughter, late-night ramen, and whispered dreams on rooftops. "I promise to love you when it's easy, and especially when it's not," Tenny said, voice steady. "I promise to build a home not just in a place, but in you." Miho looked at her with tears in his eyes. "You taught me how to feel, how to stay. You are my home." When the officiant finally said, "You may now kiss," they didn't hesitate. Laughter, applause, music. Hannah shouted, "About time." Later, as the night sky stretched overhead and the soft hum of celebration surrounded them, Tenny and Miho slipped away for a quiet moment beneath the trees. Fireflies blinked in the distance. Their fingers laced together as they sat in silence, hearts full. Tenny leaned her head on his shoulder. "We did it." Miho smiled. "We're just getting started." And as the stars watched over them, Tenny knew. This wasn't just a dream fulfilled. It was the life she had chosen, and the love that had chosen her back. The end. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe to my channel for more amazing stories.